Welcome to the reading series of the Crazy Wisdom Poetry Circle. As you know, two readers were scheduled for tonight. And unfortunately, Joe McDougall, who was scheduled, called just several hours ago, actually the day before yesterday, to let me know that she wouldn't be able to read. She's not feeling well, and her doctor advised her not to do any public reading tonight. But she has agreed to be rescheduled at a later time. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. We'll be hearing Miles David Moore, who is very much present this evening. Miles has written three books of poems, written and published 3 books of poems: The Bears of Paris, Rollercoaster, and most recently, Man on a Terrace with Wine. The Bears of Paris has one section that I particularly like, in which he has a spokesperson, a persona poems, a fat slug who is somewhat like a Falstaffian character, comments on the things that he was seeing around him back in the 1990s. Tonight, though, he's going to focus on Man on a Terrace with Wine. That poem takes its inspiration from a line from Hermann Hesse, and I'm sure that when Miles reads, he'll explain that connection. There are 2 things that Miles has been doing much of his life, actually. Besides working as a writer for the Man, he's had the avocation of running the IOTA poetry reading series in Arlington, Virginia, and that's where he lives, in Arlington. I had the pleasure to visit one of those outings in a coffee house, and it was perhaps one of the most remarkable readings I've ever been to. I was not the only reader. I was invited to read, and the liveliness of that group, and the dialogue that happened after readings was truly memorable. And he did that series from 1994 till 2017. So that's quite a record. The other thing he's done is that he's the regular reviewer, the regular film reviewer for Scene 4. It's an arts magazine originating in the Washington area, and he is the film critic. And he's been doing that for just about as long as he did the IOTA poetry series. I've read some of those reviews. They're very personable. They're entertaining, and I think he has remarkable taste in choosing the films to review. And he really goes into the all aspects of those films, the themes, the characterization, the acting. And he's a master at film reviewing. So I suggest if you are interested in films, that you take a peek sometime at Scene 4. You can find it easily on the web. So with that, I welcome to our series Miles David Moore.
Thank you very much, Ed. And thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. I really appreciate being here. It's an honor to be selected for the Crazy Wisdom Poetry Circle, and I hope to give you a good show tonight. I'm going to start with, actually, this is going to be sort of a retrospective of my poetry career, starting with 5 poems from my first book, The Bears of Paris. And I'm going to read the first 4 poems in that book, and then 1 later on in the book. The first one is short and fairly self-explanatory. It's called 2 Men. 2 men drive by a field with a horse, a tree, and a pond. "What a beautiful horse," the first man says. The second man, driving, glances toward the horse. "Awfully sway-backed," he answers. The first man is humbled and says nothing more. Only later, much later, does he realize it wasn't a horse he found beautiful, but a horse with a wind-blown mane in a green field with a wind-blown tree and the sun scattering stars on a pond. Thank you. Okay, this poem, if I ever have a chance to release a greatest hits compilation, this probably would be number one. This is the second poem in Bears of Paris. It commemorates a piece of graffiti that was spray painted on a supermarket wall in Arlington, Virginia. The wall has long since been demolished, but I felt the graffiti deserved to be preserved. And it says, "I love Barbie Taylor, T-Mac." It's official now. T-Mac no longer loves Barbie Taylor. Not for the commuters on I-395 who for 8,000 yesterdays read Passion in 3-foot schoolboy script. Today the bulldozers came, and romantic words became rubble, to be cleared away for the ritual mating of asphalt and earth. But what of real love? Did Barbie and T's live past demolition or die long before it? Did T's love leave the wall? Was Barbie's ever there? When Barbie laid azure or emerald or onyx eyes on T's declaration, did she roll them in ecstasy or embarrassment? Did Barbie and T find out too late that love can squall and soil itself, or wither in a stranger's wink, or survive the fatal screech of cars against each other? Or did Barbie and T, a couple not perfect but comfortable with their familiarity, see their wall come down with a pang for youth so long gone, so shortly gone, hold hands for the millionth time, and wave at T Jr., walking with his first girlfriend? If the earth has an answer, the dozers drown it out. Their burring voices shake the overpass where Todd Loves Tiffany appeared last week and echo in the park, rustling the oak tree where Isaac has loved Maud 100 years. All right, thank you. Now, this poem, I guess you could call an ekphrastic poem because it's based on a photograph. I don't regard it as ekphrastic. I think it's much more of a war poem. One of my sisters gave me a book of Civil War photographs and of Matthew Brady's, and one of them particularly struck me, one particularly moved me. This is called Dead Boy in the Road at Fredericksburg. You're pictured blankly in all neutral tones. Flung like a starfish on the trampled sod, you lie still as Virginia takes your bones and yields them up to Brady and to God. At least your family was spared the horror brought to our time at 6 in living color, but not the anguish of the empty chair at supper, or the lash of each cross word, or half-dreamed listening to hear your bare feet on the stairs. A century has blurred how you lost both the Christmases and quarrels when those Yanks let you have it with both barrels. It's old as Caesar. You were starry-eyed over a star-crossed flag of bonny blue till that rough monster which no flag can hide rose on its haunches and devoured you. God knows that every cause and every hurt are ashes in the equalizing dirt, so that the men who died on Sparta's slopes were dung to fertilize the olive's fruit, and now some living mother's brightest hopes lie dying on the tarmac in Beirut. We turn on our TVs and hear the cry of Belfast and Soweto as they die. Through the millennia, the murdered march to someone else's tune and memory, and through some other guy's triumphal arch. You and they are no one. Your history. Repeating rifles always bear repeating. The silent beast that ate you keeps on eating. Thank you. Excuse me, my voice is starting to crack, so sorry. Okay, this poem, there used to be a 5 and dime store called McCrory's in Arlington, Virginia. And it was sort of like a Woolworth's, only I think slightly more downscale, if that's possible. This is based on something I actually saw at the McCrory's many, many years ago. The store's been gone many years. This poem is called Plastic Hen. Between the gum and underwear displays, the purple plastic hen twirls on her dime store weather vane and squawks electrically for a quarter. She stoops on her glass nest to warm transparent eggs. Through tin mail slots, she doles her chicks. Bright whistles, rubber dinosaurs, fossil superheroes. One day I saw a woman fish a quarter from a tattered purse. Her 3-year-old compressed his face against the treasured glass. The hen awoke like Sleeping Beauty, clucked her purple polymeric song, and spun before the wide-eyed boy as if this were a wondrous world. Okay, one more.
Miles,
Yeah.
When you look a little bit to the side of the camera like this, the sound is becomes less, and we get the best hearing if you keep facing the camera. Okay. With your script right below. I just thought I'd mention that.
Okay, well, I'll try to do that. It's, you know, I was trying to like look into the straight into the camera, and I didn't want to do that. So, but well, I'll do my best. I'll do my best here though.
Yeah, if you, the camera will not catch your book if you hold it close to the screen.
Okay. Well,
we can only see this high.
Okay. Okay. No. All right. Did you want me to redo that poem? Okay, I can't hear you now.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, okay. I think we heard it, but
okay.
but I'm just saying for maximum sound.
Okay.
Optimal sound.
Okay. All right. So I will go on to this poem. This is dedicated to the memory of an old friend, a neighbor who lived in my hometown of Sugar Grove, Ohio. His name was Jim Groves. He lived from 1949 to 1990. He died of AIDS in a place and at a time when that was not understood and not particularly sympathized with. I attended his funeral. A few members of his family did not attend his funeral. I did. This is called Stiff Chairs. These chairs have nothing to do with you. Seats green as bile, backs and legs brown as decade-sodden bone. You aren't even here now. Your ashes scour the rain-soaked earth outside. The only remnant of you is glossy photos tacked to an easel, memories of a good son. I sit in forced uprightness among faces unseen, like yours, for 15 years or more. I unreal memory past blanks of days, the gaps between forgetful manhood and a childhood fogged by dreams of glory and cartoons, to where sunlight arced off your ruddy crew cut in my father's yard. Your smile was the devil's own as you teased my sisters. One of them decked you, you deserved it, and imitated chiller theater monsters to make us laugh. I don't remember if you ever teased me. I don't remember much at all. The ripple of wind-blown grass, Kool-Aid and cookies in a summertime kitchen, the plastic smack of a wiffle ball against the bat. This was the safe green world, the safe time of never thinking beyond the yard. Our dads had just killed Hitler. The doctors had just killed polio. There were no real monsters left. And now the Methodist minister who never met you sums you up. Let us not judge this poor sinner. I've sinned myself. I'm not proud of it. As if you'd been the prince of abominations while he in weakness had once said, damn. More than anything, I wonder, as you lay whittled to bone, forced to will each passing breath, if you face the final monster with that same devil's smile. The stiff chair creaks censoriously under my weight. Do not get used to ease, it tells me. Outside, the rain's drum roll erodes what's green and safe. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go on now to some poems from my second book, Rollercoaster. And this is another one of my big recital pieces. This actually won an award from Potomac Review, and much appreciated. The basis of this was when I was going to the post office, I was visiting my mom, and I was headed to the post office, and I asked her if I could buy any stamps while I was there. And she said, oh yes, honey, buy me some stamps, just anything other than those awful duck stamps. So that's the title of the poem. The way I'm living now is like when you're at the post office and you need stamps desperately, but want a beautiful design to give your correspondent some putative distinction. But the clerk at the counter is out of the first 6 designs you ask for, and you want to see the stamps she does have. But it's almost lunchtime, and she looks as if she keeps a gun under the counter. And there are 19 people behind you, each with a package to mail, and they all look as if they keep guns under their coats. So you tell the clerk you'll take anything, and she gives you a book of duck stamps. 20 green mallards pointing their bills stiffly to the left, decoy eyes stuck square in their heads, seeing nothing, making contact with nothing, lined up like a shooting gallery for disgruntled postal clerks. And you feel every bit as wooden and lifeless as the ducks as you paste them on the envelopes of 20 past due bills, while others emblazon love letters with pictures of movie stars and great events of history and every flower of the field. A couple of the people in the audience asked me to do some ekphrastic poems, so I'm going to do a couple of those. One of them is in Rollercoaster, and this is a souvenir of a visit to Florence and to the Uffizi Gallery, and in particular, a portrait by Agnolo Bronzino, Portrait of the Infant Giovanni de' Medici. Fattened with latte, bomboloni, and the pride of his august parents, Il Bambino Principe smiles sweetly even when laced into a silk doublet and made to sit still for the nice painter. You would smile too, as sweetly and unreflectively as little Gianni, if your life were as brightly colored and docile as the bird he holds in his hand, something that will sing, but not fly away. The baby's mild, wide eyes see visions of groaning tables that stretch without end. His lips part, ready to eat again. Life is good. Life is easy. It will not get any harder. Okay, now this poem, this is an ekphrastic. And this painting is in the National Gallery of Art, about 7 miles from where I'm sitting now. In my opinion, one of Edward Hopper's greatest paintings, Cape Cod Evening. Only the dog is alive, standing alertly in the brown marsh grass, ears and nose quivering, pointed toward the distance. The dog is indifferent to the squatting man. The grudging stretched out hand is bereft of treats or anything a waxwork couldn't give. The cross-armed woman slumps against the window, straight-jacketed in her hard teal dress, wishing the man, the dog, the world were dead. The blue spruce forest crowds against the house. Look, the closest tree lifts a branch against the clapboard, tasting it, judging if it's time to move. And here's a poem that I wrote. This is sort of a frustration poem, and like written fairly early on in my dealings with the internet and with emails, and how confoundedly easy it is to misconstrue messages or have your messages misconstrued on, through electronic means. And the title of this poem is Emoticon. Colon, right parenthesis, smiley face, appended sideways to an email's end. You carry on your non-existent back the weight of every writer's good intentions. You are the irony accessory, the tacked-on laugh, the shrug, the raised eyebrow to show the humor in what reads on screen as a punch in the face. The modulating warmth of a human voice or a human hand scrawl upon paper, read in warm lamplight, is lost in the computer's literal glare. You are the fall guy, the kick me sign stuck on a sentence's butt. So when someone does want to kick you, and believe me, someone will, your changeless smile shows your good grace in accepting what serves you right. Okay, I am going to go on now to the title poem of this collection, which is Fourth Man on Terrace with Wine. The full title of the poem is Man on Terrace with Wine, recalling a line from Hermann Hesse. This was an actual event. My sister Stephanie and I, there's a winery in the Carneros region of Napa County called Domaine Carneros, which is one of our favorites. This was one of our times there. And as a friend of mine pointed out, it's National Wine Day, so this poem is doubly appropriate. The line from Hesse, I changed it slightly. The original German is translated as to live deeply in a thousandfold. I changed it to live completely in a thousandfold, partly for the rhythm, but also partly because it suggested more of what I wanted to say. What happiness to dream when, drinking wine, you notice beauty that you never see when sober and at work. Late summer vines glisten with purple fruit. Serenity drifts through the willows, buoys the scent and sight of lavender and baked earth. Tenderness wafts from the hills and permeates the light. You get it by the bottle or the glass. You can't prolong this feeling, yet you must. If only life itself could be your wine, you feel not dulled but heightened. Even dust, waltzing in sunlit motes, seems rich and fine, and you feel you are better than yourself. The mountains are your friends, the grass your home. Why must this soaring pleasure be so brief that sooner than you've reached your car, it's gone? Birds hop on empty tables, pecking crumbs and tipping beaks into abandoned dregs. Vineyards and flagstones steep in Napa sun, a benediction bright and plain. You beg to live completely and a thousandfold. Where are the vineyards when the way is rough? If deep inside you, there's a place to hold a drop of stillness, will it be enough? Thank you. Okay, Man on Terrace with Wine is a little different from my other collections in that it contains several prose poems. And I'm going to read one now, and this is something I actually saw in my neighborhood, which is fairly urban, but it also has something to say, at least tangentially, about the COVID pandemic. And it was written partly in reaction to that. This is called Doe at a Street Corner. She waits on the sidewalk as if for a bus. She stands on delicate legs, deciding when to spring. She sniffs the suburban air for predators, those with engines and wheels instead of fangs and guns. She looks both ways. Natural selection. She is not one of those who will die a martyr to the freedom of crossing a road when she pleases, and her fawns will learn the wisdom from her. Her enemies are in hiding, but she has no place to hide. Her enemies have folded into themselves like flowers without sun. They are sparse on the street. They go nowhere. The reasons for them to go anywhere are negated. She has never told where she is going, nor have any of her kind. But now she has fewer places to go, which is why she is here. It is certain she cannot stay. Her ears twitch. The sound of traffic is a faraway drone. Looking again, she trots away on the correct side of the road. From a power line comes the call of a mourning dove. Sorry, dry throat again. This is a poem. I mean, again, having to deal with the internet, and even before that with the U.S. mail, I think we're all familiar with this phenomenon, and I decided to turn it into something of a philosophical statement, and this was published in the late great literary magazine Minimus, and this is called Chain Letter. This is not an Irish blessing. It contains no ancient Navajo wisdom. The Pope and the Dalai Lama haven't seen this and wouldn't care if they did. If you ignore this, you will die eventually. If you read it, if you send it on, you will die eventually. If you read it, you may win the lottery, though reading it won't help your chances. You'll have a better chance at being killed by lightning, though that probably won't happen either. You may die today or in 70 years, but however long you live, it will be your life. You may not find lasting love. You may be a Casanova or a celibate Emily Dickinson. You may get that big promotion or end up sleeping on steam grates. You may or may not be accused of a crime. You may or may not commit a crime. You may have that magic idea that will have school children singing your name throughout the reverend centuries. You will make friends without quite knowing how, and enemies without quite knowing how. It's entirely up to you whether you make a paper airplane with this, lay it down to train your puppy, start fires with it, or pass it on to no one or to everyone alive. But whatever you do, you will not break the chain. You are incapable of breaking the chain. Like everyone who reads or doesn't read this, you will stare at a nondescript blob of face decaying in glass. You will wonder at the cage of flesh that imprisons you, the name everyone mouths as if it were the sum of you, the tyranny of tastes, opinions, and pronouncements known as you. You may or may not be able to bear it when the Democratic Axeman smashes the cage and 100,000 million fractured atoms form the same chain, another, or none. All right, and I apologize. The last couple of poems I sort of fumble-mouthed, made some mistakes in reading it, for which I apologize. I'll try to do better. Okay, now the next few poems deal with family. And, this one One is about my mother, one about my father, and one about my grandmother. This is the one about my mother, who was an army nurse during World War II in the European theater. And this is about her early life and her later life. This is called The Good Fight. The English Channel surged below you, its waves licking American bones. It was D-Day plus 50, Utah Beach, and all 5'3" of you with 1,000 other nurses, helmeted, full field packed, clambered down the rope ladder swaying against the ship. The transports were like children's toys bobbing below. Don't look down, don't slip, your commanders told you. Your pack will drag you straight to the bottom. The Norman fields boomed in the distance as the waves moaned their hunger. 60 summers distance from France, the explosion was in your brain. You take lessons on how to lace a shoe, how to walk with a cane. Your voice, musical as always, lilts over the nursing center's phone. Honey, I'm coming home today. Could you please tell my mom and dad and tell them to come get me? Mother, you climb a ladder now. The sky is hazy above you, a fog of dreams and memories. The decades are your backpack now. Please don't look down. Please don't slip. You fight the good fight, now as then. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. This poem, this next poem, well, it's about a number of things. It's about my dad and about how hard he worked when he was raising us kids. It's also about rain. It's about farming, and what happens when mankind lays waste to its environment. This is called A Soaking Rain. This is the sort of rain my father liked. A steady, soaking rain, more than a drizzle but less than a downpour. There was no value in a gully washer, Dad always said. All that did was wash into the river and take the topsoil with it. Topsoil was everything. Even I knew that. It was Mom, not Dad, who always cited the old quote that all of man's achievements and sophistication were based on 6 inches of topsoil and the fact that it rains. Dad grew up on a farm. He wasn't a farmer when he grew up, but those skills helped us all, Mom and my sisters and me. We had 4 acres of land stretching back to the river. Even when Dad was working 3 jobs, driving a 60-mile mail route, driving a school bus in the morning, working 3 nights a week as a bartender at the beer joint across the way. He got out the old hand-pushed gravely and plowed an acre, planting corn and beans, potatoes and tomatoes. He also planted the strawberry patch Mom took care of. We ate well, thanks to Dad. I remember Mom shelling beans and cutting corn off the cob, all from our garden. It just all seems normal when you're a kid. You don't really think about how hard your parents work until you're older. I turned up my nose at the tomatoes and strawberries. I didn't like the seeds. My mom cut corn off the cob because I wouldn't eat it on the cob. I helped plant potatoes, shoving wedges of raw potato into the tilled soil, which new potato vines could grow. From which new potato vines could grow. I thought my back would give out after half an hour. When I was a little older, it became my job to weed the strawberry patch. To say I botched the job would be kind. I could barely tell the strawberry plants from the weeds. Soon I lost interest in trying to. Even the jobs I understood, like mowing the lawn, I would mess up by doing things like losing the gas cap on the lawnmower. Doggone you, Dad would mutter under his breath. He could have said much worse to me, and it would only have been the truth. When they built the new mall, my dad grieved. That's some of the best farmland in the county, he said. It'll never come back. Even if they tear down the mall, it'll be barren forever. Today we have a steady rain, puddling into whatever it can find. Okay, whatever soil it can find. It falls on the trunk of my car, which carries the precious bits of corn and tomatoes and strawberries I could ransom at the farmer's market. It falls on the rubble of the failed mall, torn down to make way for something as yet undetermined. It falls on concrete and blacktop and tile, hitting the hard surfaces with a disappointed smack, bashing against the eons it will take the raindrops to birth. Okay, this next poem, as I said, it's about my grandmother. It's about childhood dreams and about a childhood sense of safety and the belief that the adults in your life can make everything all right. This is called Grandma and the Hurricane. The Big Dipper, she's losing. The wind is so strong that it blows the constellations around in the sky. Never losing their shape, they are cookie cutters tumbling against each other. A spray of misty stars spills from the Big and Little Dippers and from the jug of Aquarius. The two fish of Pisces flop helplessly, impaled on the trident of Poseidon. Aries, Taurus, and Leo charge Sagittarius, who cannot steady his bow. Canis Minor laughs to see such sport. Earth, caught in the gale, feels unsteady under your feet. There is only one thing to do. Tell Grandma. You watch the cartoon you running into Grandma's house. The real you stands in her kitchen, warm and smelling of the chicken broth that simmers with her homemade noodles on the old-fashioned stove. She is snapping beans into her battered iron pot, as you have seen her do more times than you can count in your half-decade of life. Grandma is calm and patient. She always is. What is it, honey? She asks, not looking up from her beans. You want to say, Grandma, Grandma, there's a hurricane. You know that if you say that, everything will be all right. But the invisible hand reaches from behind and grips your mouth. All you can say is, Grandma never looks up. She never learns of the danger that only you could warn. And you wake up in your calm, dark bedroom, a gentle breeze playing in the starlight outside your window. You think of that again, waking not a half decade, but a half century later, to a howling wind of February. Invisible hands throw fistful of stars at your windows. The 3 a.m. clouds admit no light. The street lamps flicker in the storm. You are alone, and you can see Grandma only in your dreams. I'm going to go now to a couple of new poems. Both of these were written in reaction to what's going on in Ukraine. And the first one, unfortunately, has taken on more of a meaning considering what happened in Texas yesterday. And I don't know, I mean, it just seems like a morning time all the time now. This poem is called A Child's Toy Horse, and the subtitle is Krasnotorsk, Ukraine, March 2022. What color was the horse? We will never know. It is now and forever red. What child owned it? We will never know. There are no children, just bodies. We will never know if it was father, mother, grandmother who bought the horse for Christmas, birthday, or just a surprise. We will never know what innocent words were spoken into the horse's ear, what dreams of beautiful, cantering horses herds of kind, strong horses who loved the rider who led them, grown and brave. We know the blood that should in time have coursed the veins of a man or woman soaks into lifeless cloth and stuffing on the concrete of a train station floor. Who did this? We may never know their names. Their kind we know all too well through centuries. What we know now is the message scrawled on their missiles for the children. And this poem is, This poem is a takeoff on Shelley's Ozymandias. And again, this was motivated by Ukraine, and it contains lines from, it is a sonnet, and contains lines from the original poem. And 3 guesses who Ozymandias is. This is called Ozymandias Wins. 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone. That was always the goal, to be the last leg standing. The planet died of Ozymandias. All nations pulverized at his demanding. Mothers and children screaming as they died affirmed his strength with every blood-choked cry. To sons and fathers forced to take his side, he kept his promise that they all would die as warriors for his glory. In the sand, the disembodied head surveys its prize, its lone and level empire. Cold command is carved for good in its eternal eyes. Scarred, inert, the face of power endures. You must destroy the world to make it yours. I'm going to read a few more sonnets, which is form I really like to work in. This one, I think anybody who grew up with rock and roll and listens to FM radio can relate to this. This is called an oldie. And in case you're wondering what songs I had in mind, actually it's an amalgam of 2, Blackwater by the Doobie Brothers and the ever infamous Afternoon Delight by the Starland Vocal Band. That song you used to love begins to play on FM radio. The plaintive fiddle lilts in your ears in that cathartic way it always did. It stinks then, how the metal devolves into a synthesizer slog with lyrics of a baby babbling kind. It kills you. What a monumental dog this song is. But you never used to mind. The tune, the violin, still cancels all your fine discernment and unerring taste. Marked as a sentimental fool, you crawl toward your exacting mind, a heart debased by all the tawdry dyes it used to haunt. How we betray ourselves by what we want. I'm going to read 2 more sonnets and 5 more poems altogether. All 5 poems come out of my lifelong love for the movies and, my fondness for reviewing them. In fact, the last one is actually sort of a review in verse. I'm going to start with a sonnet about a movie that I did not like at all. And I doubt if anybody over the age of 12 who saw it liked it at all. Okay, here we go. Watching Godzilla in 3D. This is your painless dose of shock and awe. A mile of scaled and sinewed CGI arising from a pixel sea. Each claw and fang engulfs the conflagrating sky. Tokyo, Las Vegas, San Francisco crumble in tune to Dolby's all surrounding roar as you applaud the glass and stone that tumble down from the screen and vanish toward the floor. You're CGI yourself. On cue, you smile with all the film's insipid hireling crowd at this Tyrannosaurus crocodile whose gaze you're primed to say is brave and proud, that stomps back to its ocean, having killed a world you didn't make and can't rebuild. Okay. Most of the people who know me know that I have sort of a minor obsession with Alfred Hitchcock. And the next two poems are about Hitchcock films, two of my favorites. The first one is a sonnet, and the title is Vertigo. The epigraph comes from one of Hitchcock's last public appearances, in which he ran from the camera saying, "Leave me alone, I am a sea of alone." Here are the stairs you always knew you'd climb. Your pale blonde obsession waits above, her cigarette your only light. It's time, the tower bells ring, to rise and claim your love. But is this a MacGuffin or what's true? The staircase stinks of mold, the old steps groan under your heft. It all comes back to you. What you must do, have always done, alone. You've made it to the edge. Stern redwood trees cluster below, and a nefarious plan of God's grow rings around your waking dreams. The sight amazes even you. The ease with which you fall is timeless. The blonde screams to see this hurtling void shaped like a man. Okay, and this is my other Hitchcock poem. And actually, I was honored because a friend of mine named Christopher Conlon edited a volume of poems based on the work of Alfred Hitchcock, and he took the title from the quote that I used as the epigraph for Vertigo, "A Sea of Alone" was the title, but he couldn't use that particular poem. He could only, under the contract, he could only use previously unprinted work. So I wrote this for him. This is for the volume. This is about another one of my favorite Hitchcock movies, Shadow of a Doubt. Like in the middle of the movie, the villain, Charlie Oakley, played by Joseph Cotton, is supposed to give a speech before the Santa Rosa Ladies Club. And you never hear the speech. So I was wondering, what would the speech have sounded like? So I did Hitchcock the favor of writing the speech. This is called Shadow of a Doubt, Charles Oakley's speech. And so the subtitle is Santa Rosa Ladies Club, 1943. Good ladies, thanks for asking me to speak. Though Emma gave my arm a friendly twist to get me to accept, I see her point. I would have been a blackguard and a churl to turn down such a lovely group as you. It is a joy to be in Santa Rosa, this vine-embroidered gem of California, fair city of the Valley of the Moon, whose beauty rivals even Tuscany's. You've much to cherish here, and though I know you come from hardy 49er stock, like all Americans, you wonder how you can protect the freedom you hold dear from Hitler, Tojo, and their death-crazed hordes. Of course, you know that if I had the answers, I'd be at Mr. Roosevelt's side right now. But I can say this much. We built this land with courage and with hope. So when we face a peril such as this, we'll stand our ground. Shoulder to shoulder, we will fight and win. We won at Yorktown and at Appomattox. We won at San Juan Hill and Belleau Wood. In times of crisis, we endure and thrive. Don't think Pearl Harbor will go unavenged. Applaud, you morons. clap your trotters, swine. Powder your snouts and swill your rubber chicken and grunt with pleasure at my flattery. Good night, fair sows. Regain your squalid sties and wallow in your stinking excrement. I'd shove you all in Hitler's cattle cars if he weren't of the same foul stuff as you. Tomorrow you will hail me on the street and smile and wave and shake your silly jewels, the jewels that soon enough I'll turn to cash. How happily you'll greet your murderer. When rid of you, I will endure and thrive. Don't think my anguish will go unavenged. Okay, now this poem is, I've just two more. This poem is based on the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, which, like every David Mamet movie, is something of a wild roller coaster ride. There is like a very meek character played by Alan Arkin in the movie, and as Alec Baldwin announces at the beginning, you know, like the first prize for the sales competition is a brand new Cadillac. Second prize, a set of steak knives. Third prize, you're fired. So that's the basis of this poem. Sorry. Which is called Alan Arkin Wins the Steak Knives. Some days I blunder into so much pain, the urge to win, ensuring every loss, that in my dreams I wish I had the faith of Alan Arkin and Glengarry Glen Ross, who, speaking softly, has no stick at all, but keeps his head down and averts his eye, making sales calls no one wants to hear to people who cannot afford to buy. He never dreams of first place Cadillacs. Everyone knows that's Al Pacino's due. But praise third place dismissal will not be his fate, as Alec Baldwin shouts, F you! Jack Lemmon and Ed Harris curse at life, hash out long-faded triumphs over beers, and plot the theft of Mitch and Murray's leads as Kevin Spacey, sneering, overhears. That Alan Arkin, neither newly wheeled nor cuffed and printed, always lives to take the latest set of steak knives gratefully, in faith that one fine day there will be steak. I meant to mention at the beginning that, you know, I slightly Baudelaire this poem as read because I wasn't sure, you know, like I thought there might be some underage people listening in. Take it for granted that Alec Baldwin did not say F you, and the poem does not say F you, but I thought I'd make it a little gentler. And that leads me to my very last poem, which is about a romantic movie dating from 1995 that I particularly enjoyed. It was a series of three. My first was my favorite. Richard Linklater directed it. He co-wrote it with the two stars, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. And actually, this is a review of two films that take place in Vienna. And the title is the title of the poem is the title of the first movie, Before Sunrise. Calculate the possibilities of Celine and Jesse, two seraphs in grunge, keeping their last second promise to meet again at a Viennese railway station on Beethoven's birthday. Remember, they already vowed not to write each other or exchange addresses. Correspondence, in their young experience, serves only to speed love's death. So what might happen? Neither returns. He comes, she doesn't. She comes, he doesn't. One is too late or too early. His plane crashes, her train wrecks. They reunite and within minutes exhaust their previously inexhaustible conversation, or within hours open the wounds they failed to inflict before, or they elope, find jobs, have kids, and spend ever after at each other's throats. This is the point. Possibilities are not to calculate. The chances of their meeting at all, of their wandering those streets where rats and Homburgs exchanged conspiracies with sickly smiles, drove vans over each other, were run aground in sewers, of their ascending that Ferris wheel where Harry Lime offered Holly Martins a hypothetical 20,000 pounds for each crushed rat. Tax-free, old boy, absolutely tax-free. And redeeming that evil with a simple kiss, we're just as infinitesimal as the black and white trees of the Prater regaining their green, the rubble being cleared away, the Schönbrunn and Staatsoper seeing illumination by night again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miles Moore. It was a pleasure having you at Crazy Wisdom Poetry Circle.
Yes, thanks very much.